Today's session we have it's the first session of the year 2024, and I would like to welcome Bengisu Çağıltay from University of Wisconsin-Madison on the talk about supporting long-term human-robot interaction through shared family routines. Welcome, Bengisu. She's a fourth-year PhD student in the computer science department at Wisconsin-Madison Peoples and Robots Laboratory. Through qualitative and design-based research, she explores how social robots can be used in family life and facilitate family routines. So she has received her PhD minor in human development and family studies and MSc degree in cognitive science. So let's welcome Bengisu for today's session.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here and really honored for the invite. And yeah, my name is Bengisu Çağıltay. I am a PhD candidate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison People and Robots Lab. And today I'll be talking about, kind of change the title of my talk, but it's Robots and Routines and Exploring the Future of Social Robots in Family Life. So I'd like to start by giving some context into the journey of my PhD. Specifically back in 2019, I joined the People and Robots Lab in University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I started working with Bilkent on a project that ended up basically shaping the way that I look at social robots and realizing the impact that they might have on children's lives. At the time, we were one of the first research labs to have access to the social robotic platform that you see on the screen. And those of you that might be working in social robotics may be familiar with this robot. It's called a MISTI robot, which is a commercially available platform that is nowadays used in educational settings or in labs as a research platform. And at that time, our team already had ongoing research in this in-home reading setting that you're seeing on the screen, where robots could be used as motivational friends for children to help them get excited about reading and learn more about science topics. From our prior work, we already had identified several design requirements for social robots to support a child's reading experience. For example, we wanted the robot to listen to the child, perhaps respond to them by providing rich and meaningful commentaries about the content in the book. Maybe we wanted the robot to make some eye contact, some naturalistic gaze aversion. We wanted it to react with relevant emotional expressions to motivate the child, or recall past interactions and build rapport and connection over time. Since our lab was already doing research with children, given the more advanced capabilities of this MISTI robot, at the time we were really excited to explore the potential of this platform and continue our work to explore the future of social robots, specifically in family life. And we wanted to understand how children would want to interact with it and what would parents think about having this robot in their home. And basically that's where my journey started. But given that, I'm going to take a step back and I want to situate my research within the context of social robots as products. When we study perception of robots, we can see that media has a big influence on the way that we think of them. Particularly, social robots are portrayed in a polarized way in media. And even just based on my informal experience interviewing families over several studies, I frequently get to hear the varying perceptions of social robots that are typically grounded by these media representations. I often hear that families either have very high and unrealistic expectations, while some others have significant worries and concerns and skepticism. And I guess the goal of us human-robot interaction researchers is to find clever ways to set and maintain the expectations of users from either end of the spectrum. Given that, I would also say that social robots are still novel products, and it's going to take us a while before we can normalize this perception of people towards robots. And another problem that we have is that we still kind of don't know how to best design robots. Those of you in the HRI field might be familiar of the history of market failures in social robotic products, such as the Anki robot, the Jibo Kuri robot, that are right now sadly used as paperweights in our research labs, and they're stored away in our storage units. But in 2019, in this article, Guy Hoffman describes some lessons and takeaways from these failures, and I'm going to try to reflect on them a little bit based on where we are today. But he mentions that long-term engagement is an important aspect of social robotics, and that's still a big challenge today. There's still room for growth to bring artistic expressions, to enrich interactions and create emotional engagement with users. And having a design mindset that comes first is really important, is a lesson that I resonate with still. The third lesson is this. It still holds strong today, the embodied aspect of these robots that are really important in creating connections between people and robots. So the first time when I read this article, it kind of coincided with the timeline I started my PhD. And when I was revisited this article when I was preparing this talk, I really enjoyed being able to resonate with the sentiment here, and given everything that we've learned since. So if you're interested, look it up. It's a fun and thought-provoking read. So, okay, social robots as novel products, but let's dive a little bit deeper into social robots as novel products in family life. And in this slide, you're going to kind of get a glimpse of what a family's first interactions with a social robot looks like. This video was from a study that we published back in CHI 2022, where we explored and co-designed children's unboxing experiences for social robots. In the video, you'll follow the journey of this family engaging with a social robot from the moment they take it out of the box to the moment that they start using it. They listen to music, play games, dance, or even do yoga activities. And over the past 5 years of my research, probably one of the best parts of my job that I realized and that I kept finding exciting over and over again is this reaction that hopefully you'll be able to get through this video. But the moment that children and families take this robot out of the box and start interacting with it is just a very unique time that I really enjoy. But in general, I think robots, particularly social robots, are not best utilized for individual use. They're inherently social, meaning they can afford to interact and create meaning for multiple users. And just like any relationships that we have with our friends, our coworkers, our family members, social robots will form relationships, and they will need to fit into the social norms and values within society. If and when these values are violated, social robots will also need to learn how to repair trust and keep building relationships over long periods of time. And I believe this is what makes social robots unique. This ability to create excitement, value, connection, and learning in a user's life. Well, going back to robots as products, companies didn't stop creating new robots since 2019. There's been a few new social robotic platforms that are released for consumer use and research use. Some of them you see on the screen: the Moxie robot, Misty robot, Furhat, and Amazon's Astro robot. Now, for these products that are out there today, if I were to propose a fifth lesson to Guy Hoffman's list, I'd probably say something along the lines of designing for shared value. Particularly in the context of robots for families, I believe social robotic products lack the value proposition of creating meaningful interactions between multiple family members. And there's a great potential to design interactions for social robots that promote shared family activities. Some examples that just come to my mind are that, we should be able to see robots that play board games together that help the whole family to practice mindfulness or yoga. And this is probably not that too far in the future. To wrap up, in my dissertation, I argue that we need to take a family-centered approach to embedding social robots in the homes. And in turn, this can enable long-term human-robot interaction by facilitating shared family activities. And I do this so by developing design requirements for social robots and studying children and families' interactions with technology. I typically take a qualitative, design-based, and exploratory research approach as I go through this. And in the remainder of my talk, I'm going to highlight some of the core research projects that we've done regarding the use of social robots in family life. I would say my research falls into three main pillars. First, looking into a design aspect. What we've done so far in the past included projects that where we designed emotion expressions for social robots, where we've explored ways in which children would like to take care of a robot, like a pet or a younger sibling. We looked into contexts such as homework companionship, reading companionship, the unboxing experience and play companionship, or contexts such as math companionship. And from here, we conducted field evaluations of children's long-term engagement within the home. And then these all connected to looking into the theoretical considerations of making sense of these insights that were gathered from these first two pillars. So I'll be jumping into these. The first step of exploring this field was through understanding the design preferences that families have for in-home robots. And this was a collaborative effort between myself, my fellow graduate student, Hui-Ru Ho, and faculty advisors Joseph McAllis and Bilge Mutlu. I'm mainly going to highlight the method that we followed here. Basically, we conducted a participatory design study. We invited 6 families, children, parents, siblings, that had at least one child aged 10 to 12. We brought them in and we interviewed them about their daily activities at homes. We wrote them down on Post-it notes, and we treated these as use case scenarios throughout the session. We had interviewed parents and kids separately. So in the second step, we brought them together. We had them discuss the scenarios that they created. They sorted them, they discussed them, they consolidated them. And we asked them to select the scenarios that they can see a social robot being involved in some way or form. From there, we moved on to a series of co-design activities specifically tailored to family robot settings. We provided them with design resources such as Lego figurines, mini dollhouse, like a 3D printed version of the robot. So these tangible resources that can allow them to demonstrate how a robot should interact in each scenario. The findings boiled down to 3 key themes. First, there were a lot of talk around what the robot's role should be in the home. Families were really curious about whether this is a friend for the child, is it an assistant? If so, how would that role look like? Is it can we play with it? Can it help me cooking? Can it help me wake up in the morning and all those stuff? And from there, the nature of the scenarios that we built naturally converged around this idea of family group interactions. And this created a lot of conversations around who's in charge of the group dynamics. For example, if a parent and a child and the robot is having a conversation, when should the robot interrupt them? Who should it address to when there's issues and topics like that. And finally, there were some concerns voiced, especially by parents, about the privacy aspect. To But there's a nuance here that it wasn't just about data privacy, but the concerns also surrounded conversational privacy concerns, which we found really interesting at that time point. An example of this could be if a child is hiding a secret, should the robot keep it or should it share it with parents? Or if a family is planning a surprise, what if the robot accidentally spoils the surprise by revealing it to other members? So these types of concerns that weren't necessarily about their data, but the conversation itself. And this study was really, the first study that I presented was really important and for us to kind of understand and be unblocked in to our next steps, which naturally followed was to design a robotic interaction and putting it into real homes to explore how children were going to interact with it. And it led to this work, which again was a highly collaborative effort. It would not have been possible without my fellow graduate students, Nathan White, Rabia Ibtasar, and faculty advisors Bilge Mutlu and Joseph McAllis. And the question we were chasing with this exploratory field study was that, what if we put an autonomous social robot, a reading companion robot into children's homes for a month? How would children interact with this robot? And for some context about the method, we deployed this robot in 14 families' homes with children that had at least families that had at least one child aged 10 to 12. And what we designed this fully autonomous reading companion and left it in the homes for a month. But for a little bit more context, the study was conducted during summer of 2021, which you might all remember, that was the timeline where the world was kind of just opening after the pandemic. And from a research perspective, we really had to figure out a lot of logistical issues like no contact deliveries, driving to families' homes, remote robot setups, and all of that, which was kind of a logistical nightmare, but I'm happy to talk about that. That's a story for another talk. And set some context into some of the data that we were able to collect from the children's perspective and families' perspective. We were able to interview them weekly through Zoom video calls, and children were filling diaries and surveys as we went. And from the robot's perspective, we were able to collect interaction logs from every interaction that was uploaded to the cloud every day, and also videos of every reading interaction that's taken from the robot's perspective. And an interaction flow, to kind of situate you around how it looks like, would typically go like this. Child would read out loud to a robot. The robot would simulate the action of listening. And the children were provided with a set of 20 books that were around in the topics of informal science. Within each book, we had prepared comments for every 2 to 3 pages. And on those, they were indicated with these augmented comments. So as a child encounters these augmented comments, they would show it to the robot, and then the robot would provide a pre-designed comment related to the topic of the book. A typical interaction flow from the robot's perspective would look like starting the interaction, it would wake up, it would wait until it identifies the child, and then it would recommend books for that reading session. Collaboratively with the child, the robot would set a reading goal and then initiate the reading session. And then the robot would listen to the child reading and share expressive comments as they were triggered. Basically, this part was what was on repeat throughout the interaction. This went on until either the reading goal was met and the robot would let the child know, or the child had the freedom to end the session at any time they wished. the ending of the session, the robot would complete it, say its farewell, say goodbye, and then go to sleep, meaning it would ask the child to put it on its charging station. Here's another example of how like a comment and reaction of the robot might look like. Imagine there's this book about this called Fantastic Body. Some of them are interrupted for at least a week and rarely continued reading afterwards. And a subset of them stopped reading with the robot within the first or second week mark. But they shared with us that they again continued reading the books. From there, we were really curious to dive a little bit deeper into the why aspect of these observed categories. And we were able to identify a set of factors that shape children's engagement. And these were mainly due to a collection of disruptions that were affected, that affected the child's routine, that we were able to collect through, to understand through our interviews. Some examples are children just said, they have lower interest. The interest dropped over time. Some parents had different levels of involvement. For example, we had more hands-on parents, more hands-off parents, and this manifested in different ways in which it helped or hindered the child's engagement. Families had, of course, weekend trips and family visits that came into in between the robot. And sometimes the placement of the robot, whether it's in the living room, in a shared space, or their personal space, also had an impact. And for one example, one child had multiple households that they were struggling to juggle between, where some portion of the day they needed to move the robot to another house. And this just became a little bit difficult to handle as the study went on. So the more we kept digging, the more context we were getting about children's experiences. And we kept getting stronger signal that the child-robot interaction was way going beyond the child and included the broader family context. So naturally, we were then curious about the set of children that adopted the robot and look into the differences between them. We wanted to broaden our perspective and understand how families share the interaction space around the child-robot setting. And for that, we conducted a secondary analysis on all the interaction videos that were collected from this subset of 6 children. In total, we had 160 videos. Every video ranged from 5 to 30 minutes, depending on how long the child read. And in the video on the right, what you'll see is one clip really exemplifying what is happening in these reading sessions. And this video is taken from the robot's perspective. On the left-hand side, you'll see the child reading to the robot. And then on the right-hand side in the background, you will be seeing kind of the other family members trying to engage. So what happened here, and again, notably, this video was actually not from early stages, but perhaps in the second or third week of the deployment. So by all means, this was not the novel time where the families were just introducing the robots. So a child on the left, they're trying to set their reading, they're trying to start reading, and you see the cat coming in, you see a sibling moving around. The parents are in the background. There's a lot of spontaneous and enriching family interactions happening in the surroundings. Right at this moment, the younger sibling is enthusiastic to kind of reach out to the robot and interact with it. Basically, what we understood by looking at these videos was had many missed opportunities to engage family members. Even though the robot was able to create this space, we weren't able to actively include these other members in the interaction. And the deployment just reinforced the idea that a one-size-fits-all approach does not suffice. And even though we had put intentional efforts into providing a broad set of reading materials, variety in robot speech, and provided some structure with the design requirements that we had, we still observed this wide range of behavioral responses having the robot in their home. And that led me to a state of reflecting on this really rich and complex data sets. And I've spent maybe months, maybe I would even say maybe years, trying to make sense of this data that is still stuck in my head today. And there's just something missing, even after the two forms of analysis. And that led me to starting my PhD minor in human development and family studies. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge my mentors there, Heather and Maggie, that really helped me make sense of what's going on and how I was able to proceed from here. But basically what I realized, we need to take this perspective shift from a child-robot interaction to a family-robot interaction, but embody this to the fullest. You know, even though we were asking family members advice, we were co-designing with them, we were including them in our conversations, but we weren't fully involving them specifically. And this was a common practice still right now in human-robot interaction field and child-robot interaction field. And there are a lot of questions around how can we include them as active participants as opposed to these passive observers in the background or consent providers that are there within our studies. And another question is, how can we design robot interactions that can create shared value between the family members? Some examples that I gave earlier that I'll kind of repeat is like having shared family game nights, maybe reading together, and other shared values and suitable activities that we can tailor for families. And that really connects this, all the work that I've done so far to this final leg of work that I was able to bring various theoretical insights from the family studies field into the human-robot interaction field. And we proposed a theoretical framework for family-robot interactions. It's recently accepted for the HRI 2024 conference. And I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek into my HRI 2024 talk. And for the full version of this talk, you can visit us at Boulder, Colorado in March. But basically, what we've proposed in this paper was this holistic understanding of family-robot interactions. I've conducted a literature review on the limited but growing field of social robots for children, for families, specifically families with children. And we built a deductive framework that's adapted from family theories, specifically family systems theory, and provide a synthesis of a subset of papers that specifically demonstrate how robots could potentially support family life, as well as how family characteristics can inform robot design. At a high level, this framework consists of 3 systems: the context that the interaction takes place, the family system, and the robot system. And there are interactions between the family and the robot where, at a high level, I argue that family characteristics can and will inform robot design attributes. And at the same time, robot characteristics, the technical and interactive capabilities, have potential to support interactions between the family systems. Okay, so we've done all of this work, proposed this framework, and where do we go from here? I'd like to close off this talk with some ideas of how we can apply this framework and this way of thinking and future work. And a possible solution that's becoming more clear to me is for designing for robot facilitated activities for the family as a whole, where we can deliver shared value. If you'd ask me, are we there yet? Nope, we're not there yet, but it is definitely a close start, and we'll be seeing more practical work focusing on family-robot interactions in the near future. An example and evidence of that is that a lot of the insights that I've shared today really helped inform the creation of a newly funded NSF grant that's led by 3 co-PIs from University of Wisconsin, U Chicago, and University of Illinois Chicago, Bilge Mutlu, Sarah Sibo, and Joseph McAllis. And you can expect to see some upcoming work looking into embedding these robotic products into family settings and how we can support long-term engagement within this the setting. But specifically, what's in the works for myself is I'm really interested in looking into this idea of building a family robot integration plan. And as part of this goal, I'm working with also a new PhD student, Michael Shu, who is going to be looking into developing metrics to identify robot facilitated activities that might be tailored to family needs. And as I wrap up my PhD journey and moving on to the next chapter, what really excites me the most is coming together with people from all sorts of interdisciplinary backgrounds and then brainstorming ways and collaborative findings in which we can address the technical challenges in human-robot interaction research, as well as finding new and creative directions for addressing the practical needs in family life. And I hope that I'll be able to continue exploring this field as soon after finishing my PhD. And if I would leave you with one takeaway, I'd like you to hopefully that you're able to see the opportunities in this rich and untapped space that's within the intersection of HRI and family studies, and that meaningful and intentional robot facilitated activities that promote value across members is not that far away in the future. We might be seeing at least research applications of that coming up soon. And one more thing, a couple more things that are brewing that I'd like to highlight before opening this up for discussions is that briefly mentioned that I have an HRI paper that's in the works in the theory track. You've already got a glimpse of that today, but I'm also honored to and excited to be a cohort of this year's HRI Pioneers workshop. And that's another venue that you'll be hearing more from me talking about robots and families. The last thing that I want to highlight is that we're organizing a workshop at CHI this year. Our website is live. We're accepting paper submissions, and basically this will be focused on the broader human-computer interaction field, looking into methods and ways we can conduct family-centered design in a more practical sense. So if you are intrigued by this topic and if you want to join us in this workshop, together we'll be co-creating a handbook or a guidebook of resources that's going to include methods and practical approaches to conducting family-centered design approaches. We have a lot of experts on board, and we're going to be covering many topics across HCI, ranging from AR, VR, health informatics, smart home devices, and HRI as well. So if you're interested, grab the link, grab the QR code, and feel free to. We would be looking forward to having you join us at CHI. But yeah, this wraps up my talk, but really want to take a moment to acknowledge all of my collaborators, my mentors, and lab mates, that really none of this work would have been possible without their support throughout this journey. So yeah, that wraps up what I have to share today, but looking forward to having more conversations.
Thank you, Bengisu, for the wonderful talk. One question. So you mentioned about the interaction going on until the robot is until the child is completing the reading. So I'm just curious, like how long was this interactions, and how many sessions did the children have in total during the study?
Yeah, it was a very I don't know, like free to choose your own experience type of setting. So children were not required to read for a certain time or certain amounts throughout the deployment. We asked them to read as much as possible as they feel comfortable with. So it varied, but to mitigate that, we did provide some structure. For example, I believe we collected their current reading, I guess, habits, and we had a baseline of how much they currently read. And in our first recommendation from the robots, we gave them a time range. I believe it was around at least 12 to 15 minutes a day. And the robot would say, okay, let's at least try to read 15 minutes. At the beginning of the interaction, like I mentioned, it was a collaborative process. So the child could say, sure, I'll read that much, or they could reject it and either lower the amount of time they read. So that really kind of structured how long they would read and how frequently they would read. But they also had the choice to, like I said, either end it early if something came up, or if they got bored, or if they finished the book early, or go overtime and read longer. So that's why when I was presenting the video duration, that's why there was a range from 5-minute reading sessions to 30-minute reading sessions. It comes from that aspect of they had the freedom to choose how much they want to read.
Okay, just one more question. So at the end, if you look at the children who adopted the robot, there was a clear difference in the gender of the children. So did you observe any preferences from the children regarding the gender of the robot or the design of the robot or something?
Yeah, we didn't specifically look into gender differences because we weren't, even though there was gender distributions, it's like the reading habits, like we didn't have metrics or relevant, like something to ground us objectively to correlate that, oh, this is a gender thing versus a
Okay.
Yeah. Another aspect was, I don't have it on the slides, but like age distribution was also interesting. I don't recall it directly, but I think I would not be incorrect if I say the kids that adopted it were a little bit more on the older age range, but I need to look up the actual numbers for that. So yeah, when we're looking at, we tried to make sense of everything. Is it gender? Is it age? Is it number of siblings? Is it amount of time that they read? Survey responses. So we could not pinpoint anything specifically. So I would not make any claims on that end.
Thanks for this great talk, and I will be looking for your future work in the upcoming months. So I have a question. I think you have lots of insights and experience from the working with children in USA. Do you have any further plans to enhance these insights or try them with children or families with different culture, for example, children from other countries or something like
Yeah.
that?
I love that question. And that is one of the, so for context, I know Tuğçe from my master's degree, and we're both from Turkey. So I can tell where she's coming from. And I definitely, one of the first things that I thought after facing this, maybe running my first study with American families, was like, oh, wow, if I had done this exact same protocol in Turkey with Turkish families, I don't know if I would get these same insights. So from day one, maybe year one, I've been thinking about, okay, how would this look different in different cultural contexts? And this is already an ongoing, discussion within the HRI field or in general science. The idea of cross-cultural insights that is limited. So yes, I do really, really want to one day be able to replicate either the same protocol or version of these social robots in family life. Maybe simultaneously running studies within hopefully Turkey and in the US, maybe with other countries and collaborations. And I hope that would be maybe one of my early projects one day when I become faculty. But yeah, definitely. I think that would provide a lot of value.
Thanks. It will be great to see the differences or the overlaps. So we will be waiting then. Good luck.
I'm just curious to know, like, how you have introduced the robot to the family or the child, like whether you have given a persona or a specific role to the robot.
Yeah,
Can you
that's
expand on
a
that,
good
please?
question. Yeah, so for the design study, the first study that I presented, we intentionally left the robot off-powered. So we gave a very brief definition of what a robot can do or not do, but basically we let them interpret their perceptions and what they think of the robot. So in that design study, I'll pull it up here. So this one. We've heard different variations of, like, sometimes children assigned different genders to the robot or attributes and whatever that might not also be realistic, like running around in the garden, whatever. For the in-home deployment reading study, because I mentioned this was like during the pandemic, our first engagements with the children were all over Zoom. What we did provide with them was these like handouts of things to expect, Q&A, like I guess there were more technical aspects, like how to take the robot out of the box, how to carry it, transport it, and all those stuff. And in the interviews, we basically gave them a definition of saying, oh, this is a reading buddy robot. They already knew that they were going to be reading with this agent, but they had no expectations that were set by us. And we kind of made an effort not to overpromise or like give under, set their expectations. So yeah, we just said, oh, this is a reading buddy that you'll be reading with over the course of a month. Let me know, like, tell me what do you think about the robot, instead of me saying what you should expect from its personality. So I guess to have from there, from interviews, what we heard again were different interpretations of children. So we have this moment in one of the videos where there's a plane flying by in the background, and the child hears that, and then the robot randomly makes a gaze movement unrelated to that plane. And the child is like, oh, the robot is distracted. Like, oh, maybe I should move it around to the other part of the room so it doesn't get distracted. Or sometimes when the robot makes a comment, it would express different emotions, and children interpret that, oh, it's really excited to read with me, or I guess it got bored today, or like interpretations like that we were able to see throughout the videos. But yeah, we did not set any expectations.
Okay. Let me conclude the session thanking Bengisu once again, because I think this talk was very interesting and also gave us a new perspective of this family robot interaction, which I think is more relevant in the participatory design of the robots.
Thank you so much.